Anyway, here with reaction in his very unique style and way is our friend Senator John Kennedy from the great state of Louisiana. You know, Senator, I have a question for you because you're a common sense guy. I'd like to put aside Republican, Democrat. I just want Americans to have a chance to be successful. That's why I'm a conservative. I think conservatism works. So in all these years, 35 years in radio, 26 and a half years in Fox, over those years, I have seen a lot of research on myself. And sometimes there's criticism from one or two people. I'll look at it. I'll pay attention to it. But when there's a trend of 15, 20, 30 people maybe making the same criticism about me in some way, I usually pay attention and I try to change to be better at what I do. Now, if you have record high gas prices, you know, that we've never seen before, now over $5 a gallon, and record high inflation, the obvious answer would be to change. Go back to the policies that you inherited that worked. Why won't Joe Biden and his party even consider the policy change shift that would be needed?
Sean, I don't know. Some of my Democratic colleagues have raised age as an issue for the president. In my judgment, age is the least of the president's problems. If he doesn't run for re-election, in my opinion, it'll be because of his unpopularity. I don't think I'm unlike most Americans. I think about 90%, I know about 90% of my personal and political philosophy is don't hate, don't hurt someone unless you have to defend yourself, don't take other people's stuff, and leave me alone. And President Biden obviously disagrees. He and his administration are constantly screwing with the American people, telling them how to live their lives. And they do so in a way that does not improve the lives of most Americans. I'll give you a few examples. President Biden and the Biden administration sicked the Department of Justice on parents who care enough about their kids to go to a school board meeting and ask questions. The Biden administration called the people of Florida a bunch of bigots because they don't want government talking to their 5-year-old children about sexuality. The Biden administration called the good people of Georgia racists because they believe that you ought to have to prove you are who you say you are in order to vote. Just today, President Biden gave a speech. And here's what he told the American people. He told the American people that their 401ks have crashed and that gas has gone from $2 to $5 because the economy is so good. No one believes that. No one believes that. And that's why I say that President Biden's biggest challenge, in my judgment, is not his age, it's his policies that he won't change.
Now I want to take it to the next step. You gave me the answer about Biden, but you're a pretty cordial, personable individual. I'm sure you talk to people on the other side of the aisle. You may even have a good relationship with many of them. I would assume you probably do. What about them? What are they saying about the high gas prices? What are they saying about Joe? What are they saying about inflation? What are they saying about, you know, the state of the economy, the border, all of these issues? Are they not seeing what is so plainly obvious to everyone else?
Well, when it becomes time to talk about President Biden's policies, you couldn't find, well, let me put it another way. Dog the bounty hunter couldn't find most of my Democratic colleagues when you want to talk about President Biden's administration and his failures.
Wait a minute, but Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, they seem to be people you can work with. They seem reasonable. They bucked their party and they said, no, and we're not going along with some of these policies. I give them credit for doing so. They've taken a lot of heat for doing it.
Yes, but they don't criticize the president. Now, maybe they do privately, but what my biggest surprise in the past 6 months particularly after the Virginia governor's race, is that this administration, instead of course correcting, has doubled down. And at this juncture, I can tell you that most Americans look at this administration. How can I put this? They think Andy has left town and Barney is in charge, or maybe Otis.
They're young kids. Otis the drunk. No,
they just don't
there are some
understand.
people that have no idea that you're talking about Mayberry, USA. They don't know.
Well, they should watch the series. They might learn something.
They might. You know, it's interesting, and I've said this before. It's worth repeating, in my view. After the midterm shellacking and Hillary care failed, and they didn't have a good first midterm, Bill Clinton in 1994, when the Republicans came to power on the contract with America, Newt Gingrich's vision, you know, Bill Clinton then adjusted. The era of big government is over, and it's the end of welfare as we know it. He also had what we describe as a sister soldier moment. I don't see that capacity in any Democrat but for the two I mentioned. Do you?
No, but here's the difference between the Clinton and the Biden administrations. President Clinton appointed what one commentator called this week a bunch of high IQ, stupid people. In other words, they were well educated but no common sense. President Biden has appointed whack jobs. I mean, it's like these people dropped acid in an outback parking lot. You can't reason with them. They are just so woke, and that's the difference, in my opinion, and why they haven't course corrected.
All right, Senator, we need you back in the Senate. I know the good people of Louisiana will gladly pull the lever for you and vote for you. We appreciate you being with us. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.